All right. Yeah, I think I thought of a few questions beforehand, and I think we'll just see how it goes. But I think the first question that I want to ask is, I mean, we're worlds apart, and I mean, I'm a complete stranger to you. I have the advantage to have been able to read about you a bit on your website and look at some of your videos. So I kind of feel like I know you a bit better. But it kind of just leads me to, why did you say yes?
When the video?
Yeah, to the interview. I was like, when I was typing my email, I was like, kind of thinking this is a 1 in a million shot, and I'm really interested to find out what your mindset was and why you said yes, or is it just the kind of person you are, or did you give it any thought, or yeah?
Well, I didn't give it so I've gotten tons of media requests, lots of media interviews, and you know, when you do a media interview, you get maybe, you know, they're going to take maybe 1 sentence, maybe 2 sentences of what you say, right? So I've worked with the media my whole life. It's not that big a deal, but you never really get to tell your whole story. And then, you know, the whole idea that we are worlds apart, you know, I'm honestly incredibly humbled that this silly little video resonated globally. You know, a friend of mine's from Brazil, and he hasn't spoken with his family in almost 20 years. And his grandma saw the video. He goes, oh yeah, I know that guy. And he reconnected with his family because this video resonated, and it kind of created this connect. So when I got your email, I was like, you know, we're worlds apart. I have this fundamental belief that we probably all have more in common than we do differently. And if we could actually, you know, there's all these forces in the world, right? Especially like in America right now, we're really dealing with it. And South Africa has had its challenges with it, where you have forces that are telling us everything that makes us different. Well, you're on this team and I'm on that team, and I believe this and you believe that. And all these things are separating us. And wouldn't it be nice if instead we could talk about what makes us more the same, the shared experiences or the shared commonalities that we have? And we're like, aren't we really kind of all on the same team when you think about it? We're all, you know, on this same little blue orb, you know, together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's amazing, because that's actually what I was thinking. I'm not into motorsports or motorcycling for that matter. I'm a cyclist, so that's, I know it's world apart in one sense, but the thing that resonated with your stuff is like, you've got this desire to just get on the road and get a different perspective and see places you wouldn't normally see, and I kind of, that's the thing that kind of resonates. So after watching a few of your other videos, your actual motorcycling videos, I was like, damn, I really want to do this. And I was telling my wife just now, like, I really want to come to America now and come do some motorcycle tours. So it's actually extremely interesting to me, because that's exactly what my feeling was as well. It's like, just, we don't have anything in common, and yet we have everything in common. It kind of felt like it's like this.
Well, we have even more in common than that. I actually started out racing bicycles. Bicycles were the gateway drug to motorcycle. Like, because when I was a little guy, you know, I grew up in a really, really rural part of the state, and the nearest store was about 10 kilometers away. So if I wanted to go get penny candy and a soda pop, the only way to get there was by bicycle. And so I raced bicycles. I still love mountain bikes. I do probably more mountain biking than I do motorcycling, honestly, because it's more accessible. Yeah. But bicycles gave me that first taste of freedom as like a little kid, you know, like I'm away, I'm moving through the world, and bicycles and all things two-wheeled, right? It's like this shared experience. I can smell the flowers. I can feel the cool air. I can smell the rain coming in. It's not like being in a car where I'm kind of encased in this little glass and steel bubble with the climate control and whatever. I'm more connected with the world around me.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes the world better to me. I mean, I went cycling yesterday morning, and it was freezing cold, and I couldn't feel my fingers for half the ride, and I was just thinking the whole time, this is amazing. I'm so lucky to be here. It's a kind of it gives you another sense of purpose and meaning.
Oh yeah. Like mountain bike, I used to race road bikes, right, years ago, but I fell in love with mountain bikes. The modern mountain bike is a marvel.
Yeah.
And you're up on top of this mountain, and you're all by yourself, you know, because we have mountains that are like 3,500 meters tall, right? Yeah. And you'll be up there like at 3,000 meters up in the air, and, you know, the wind's just blowing through the aspen trees and the pine trees, and like the squirrel runs, like it's this really kind of intimate experience. You know, it really takes you out of like all the day-to-day crap that we all have to deal with. You know, I got the boss, and I got the politics, and I got the whatever. Now I'm just up here on the mountain, you know?
So what do you think, just, this is just a silly question, but what do you think is the most beautiful place you've been to? Let me, maybe just for the people at home that don't know your story, in my church and my community that I now read, it seems like from your website that this all got started by a bunch of, with 4 friends ditching class and just deciding to, let's go hop on our bikes and go see parts of the world that we normally wouldn't see. So what do you think in all this time is one of the most beautiful places you've been, or can't you?
Well, of those 4 friends, 2 of them moved to New Zealand. And so New Zealand is probably the prettiest place in the world I've been. I was in the army and I was deployed to Bosnia in '95. So I got to see a lot of Europe that way. I've been a lot of places, but I haven't been to South Africa. But I absolutely fell in love with New Zealand, especially the South Island of New Zealand. It reminded me of what the Rocky Mountain West looked like here when I was a kid. There was fewer people, the streams were still clean, you know, like the mountains nobody's up there. I think New Zealand just really gobsmacked me.
Yeah, we actually, in South Africa, a lot of people are immigrating to New Zealand and Australia, and a lot of the people that actually immigrate to New Zealand also say in there that it's an amazing place and extremely beautiful. But I really want to ask you to come to South Africa and make that.
I want to,
and answer the question afterwards again. I'm pretty confident.
I would love to see it. Yeah, no, it's like I said, I really want to see a lot of Africa. There's a lot of Africa that I would love to see. You know, from what I understand and the research I've done, like Ethiopia is gorgeous and it doesn't really have that reputation, you know, like, I would love to see all of Africa, not just South Africa.
Now, even Rwanda and Kenya and obviously Zanzibar, and you get a lot of different, I think, different fields. It's not the same everywhere. You're going to get a different scenery every time. So no. Really, I'm honest when I tell you that come to South Africa, I'll hook you up, no problem.
On the list.
Okay, great. Okay, so the other thing that kind of resonated with me is it seems to me that the reason your YouTube channel, not just your YouTube channel, everything kind of became a success it wasn't part of your initial plan. It seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, it was the main thing was you were doing what you loved, and you kind of just shared that. I don't know if you want to kind of, and if you think that's part of it, or you do think like maybe the market was ready for it, maybe, or you were at the right place at the right time, but I don't know how. Just speak a bit about your success, if I can call it success, or you feel it like.
Well, no, nothing is ever planned, and I think I make my wife crazy, but like, I don't really believe in planning, you know, like if you want to make God laugh, make a plan, you know, because like how many things have you planned in your life that it turned out the way that you thought it was? Even as far as like planning a vacation, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, we're going to see that. And it rarely goes the way you think it's going to go in your head. So as far as like CanyonChasers, and especially like this little video that kind of took off, all these little things, none of it was planned. It was always, I enjoy doing this, and I have this kind of compulsive need to share with others. I have to tell stories. I have to, you know, share. Like, you know, there's so many things that like I learned the hard way that I'd be like, man, it sure be nice if like I wouldn't have had to go through that. What would happen if I wrote down or I made a video about my struggles or what I learned to make it easier for the next person to come along? So I think it wasn't planned at all. It all really did come from kind of this desire and need to share experiences and help others, you know, especially like things that you love, right? Like I love all things two-wheel, you know, and if somebody else loves that, I want them to have as great of a time as I'm having.
Oh, no, that's incredible. And I really think it translates. I really, really do think it translates in your videos. And it's like with 5 minutes of research, you can absolutely just see that you're doing this because you love it. And that's the, but I really think there's something also in what you're saying about the power. It's like, there's this saying I was actually thinking about. It's like joy isn't completed until it's shared joy. Like, I think I actually had a sermon about this last year when we did our confirmation for the kids, where the kids stood up in front and then kind of confessed their faith. And it was, I made the point that like your happiness or joy is fine, but it's kind of the moment you can share it with your friends or your family, it's kind of like it gets like that extra edge, that extra dimension, like almost like it's kind of, it gets completed. I mean, I remember I was actually in Austria for a few months where I studied, and I saw these incredible sights, but I was there alone. My fiance, now wife, was in South Africa, and I was like seeing it, and I just felt this emptiness because I couldn't share, and I just realized how incredibly important it is for us human beings to kind of be able to share, and how it just, and I think that's part of this video. Maybe it's for me, I'm getting so much joy just to think we're sharing a conversation like this, continents apart, literally. So okay. Let me see, what's another question. I was let's talk about this. I mean, when you said made the comment about making plans and God laughs, I really I think we can be good friends, because that's kind of my philosophy through life. But I mean, is there any time in our history of being on this planet, like a time like now where we realize we can't plan for anything? So in this pandemic, how did it kind of, the question is actually, how did it affect your life and being able to do what you love, and what do you think in this specific time where we're all going through this worldwide pandemic, what do we need to do and hold on to and tell each other to kind of get through this?
Well, I think there's kind of like there's two ways to kind of look at it. I think as far as like what we were doing before, and I think to a certain extent, a lot of people get really obsessed with planning, and because it's kind of a form of control. I can kind of control my environment. I'm going to plan it all out, right? And it's control, and there's a freedom, I think, when you can kind of relieve or release or kind of let go of some of that control and just experience things as they come to you. Like, I knew a guy once who he was a motorcycle guy, and he was in Italy, and he stopped and to get like an ice cream or a gelato or whatever. And some little old man comes out and starts talking to him about stamps. And he didn't really want to talk to this guy because he had an agenda. He had a place to go. He had a thing to do, right? And so he was just trying to get out of this conversation with this little old man about stamps. And he finally gets out of it, and he gets on his bike, and he's like, well, now I'm behind. And so now he's rushing, and then he went up the road and he crashed because he wasn't paying attention because he was rushing. And I was kind of like, you fool. Like, aren't some of the most treasured moments in your life the ones that happen unexpectedly, that we open ourselves to experience and just kind of let them kind of transpire? So I think that's kind of part of it as far as like the whole planning things goes. And then as far as like COVID, and, you know, my life didn't change a whole lot. My wife and I, we both were full-time telework employees with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. I work in telehealth, you know, not when I'm not doing motorcycle stuff. So like my hours got really long. I was working 14, 18 hours a day when this all kicked off, trying to like take care of all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I can't really ride motorcycles because there's no place I can really go. So it's really hurt the channel in that regard, not being able to go out and get content. And honestly, that was part of why this video popped up. I was like, I got to keep the algorithm alive. I'm having a hard time generating content in COVID because I'm not willing to go out and take risk right now. I'm not willing to go out and expose others potentially. And so I was like, oh, I'll just put this out there. But we still were out mountain biking. We're still doing things. I miss movies and sushi, you know, like it's surprising how much I miss movies and sushi. But our lives didn't change a whole lot. And I know like there's a lot of couples out there that COVID really, it's caused like marital strife, you know, like they weren't used to spending this much time together. For my wife and I, like I think it's great. We're spending all this time together. It's fantastic. You know, so our lives didn't really change a whole lot because of COVID, fortunately. I know there's a lot of people, especially here in America, that they're not working. They're really struggling. And so I feel kind of blessed that everything here just is kind of ticking off fine, you know?
Yeah. No, I think here in South Africa, that's also the first reaction we kind of had to it, because we're also kind of, well, especially in my situation at home, our lives were so hectic beforehand, and this kind of forced us to slow down. But it only kind of slowed down for a while, and then the problem now is we're running at 500 kilometers an hour once again, just from home. And where there were always like these boundaries as to, okay, this is my workspace, this is my play space, and so forth. Now it's kind of all blurred. But funny enough, the one thing, my son actually turned 6 a month back, and I decided, well, 6 is the age where you get your first bike. so the interesting thing is, for me, for the past month, my son and I, and actually my daughter of 4 also, went riding every afternoon. I actually had time, and I kind of we just around the block and so forth. And it's actually, and thinking back about it, I don't think I would have been able to do this otherwise, because normally in the evenings I would have been out seeing people and so forth. So it's strange how you actually get opportunity within this tragic situation, because I mean, a lot of people are really struggling here in South Africa as well. I mean, it's really, really difficult. But yeah, it's not just terrible. There's a lot of opportunities, I think, as well. Yeah.
Well, and slowing down, like, there's so much value. So like in motorcycling, if you want to go fast through a corner, right, that most riders crash, or they make their mistake by going so fast at the entrance of the corner. They want to go fast, right? The corner's the hard part, it's the obstacle, it's the challenge that they're faced with, and they want to go fast. And so they accelerate into the corner, or they go really quickly into the corner. And that usually results in a crash, right? And so what we do as coaches, a lot of the time, what we're trying to encourage riders to do is to slow down at that beginning part, right? Like, kind of take it easy, slow until you can see where it's going, and kind of take that time. And once you kind of have the visibility, you can see how tight the corner is, or if there's something in the road, an animal or whatever, then you can decide how much you want to accelerate or where you need to go. But there's that taking a little bit of time at the beginning stages, because we've all driven, right? Or we've all entered a corner on our car or whatever that was tighter than we thought it was. And you're like, whoa, I didn't really enjoy that. But like, taking time, you know, and making that slow down process at the beginning of things a priority, I think we end up further down the road. Yeah. Slower is faster. Like, just, and so, yeah, I think you're right. Like with COVID, it kind of forced a lot of people to slow down. Here in America, this makes me really happy. It's kind of similarly related, but there's no more dogs to rescue. All the dogs have been rescued. Yeah. And so, like, what to me is like this, I love dogs, right? And it's this amazing thing that people having time and slowing down, you know, like, and how much of that stuff before was noise, right? And separating that away it's making the world better in a lot of ways, right? There's very few homeless dogs in America right now, which just gives me joy, you know? And I know dogs like this, you know, but come on, like, how awesome is that?
It's very awesome. But it actually kind of you're leading me into one of the very important questions. I mean, to be honest, we haven't even gotten to the video here yet, so I'm quite excited about that. We're 23 minutes into the interview and we haven't even gotten to the actual video. But while watching some of your videos and actually listening, and I realized, for me, there's a lot of life lessons that I can actually take out of it. Like, there's 2 things that quickly jumped out. Like what you just said, I actually saw one of your videos where, like, how I stopped being scared getting into corners. I was like, this is actually, and exactly how you pitched it now. It's like, isn't that life, eh? I mean, you're talking about motorcycles, but you're not really. You're talking about life. It's, once again, how it's connected. But it's actually 2 other things. The other thing that I realized in one of your videos that you posted, I can't remember, 3 months back or something, you said something about, like, an Italian driver, you have to learn from Italian drivers and never look behind you. Um, and don't worry about what's happened behind you. Just focus. And you actually use the words in that video, like just be in the moment. And I was like thinking that you're not talking about motorcycles at that stage. I mean, you could have been talking about literally anything. Yeah, and the same question is also, you told in that same video, I think you told you shared about how you lost how motorcycles gave you so much joy. I mean, all the joy in the world, but it's also taken from you. Like, and obviously you didn't elaborate, and you don't have to feel like you have to now. But what I heard there is like, you're talking about how to hold joy and sorrow at the same time. It doesn't have to be like up the whole time. It's both, and kind of doing your passion. You learn how to deal with that in motorcycles, with motorcycles, but also like in life, it's an important lesson. So actually, those are a few themes that I just quickly picked up, and I was actually wondering, like, do you think there's other things that do you actually think you can learn from motorcycling and stuff, or something else that you think that you experience in your life?
It's actually funny that you bring that up, because I've always felt, and a lot of the coaching that I do, I always felt kind of the same way, that motorcycling, and probably any other passion that you have in life, if it's golf or fishing or whatever the thing that you're into, that there can be life lessons gleaned from that. And I've always kind of done that. I've never realized that me injecting kind of these like hidden messages inside that, because all those things were not put in by mistake. I absolutely put those in with that kind of in mind, that these things apply. I think there's a myriad of things that come from motorcycling that apply back to life. And what I think is different about motorcycling or bicycling as opposed to golf or fishing or something like that is there's a movement that's involved with it. You're moving through something, right? And you can't go back to what's behind you. You can't repeat the thing that you've done. Mm-hmm. It's different every single time. And because it's this constant progression, your skills are either progressing or regressing, right? You're getting better, you're getting worse, you're being lazy, or you're being good at it or whatever. All these things, they tie back into life all the time, because you can't go back. But how many of us completely obsess about something that happened, right? Mm-hmm. How many times have you gone to a party and then you go home the next night and you're sitting there, it's like, oh, was what I said really stupid? Did I really offend them? I didn't mean to offend. And you just obsess about it. And then you can't sleep through the night. And then the next day you call them and they're like, I don't even remember that. I don't even remember you saying that. You know, like it was, you turn something in your past into this huge thing. And in reality, it really didn't even have an impact. Yeah. So focusing on what's coming and all these things that we have to deal with, right? There's new obstacles, there's unexpected things, there's twists and turns that we couldn't predict that are thrown at us all the time. And motorcycling is this great analog, because that's what motorcycling is, right? Especially unless you're like a Harley guy that likes going straight, that's kind of boring. You know, like if you're like twisty roads that are interesting, there's always going to be unexpected stuff that you have to deal with. You have to be decisive, and you have to be deliberate, and you have to be prepared. I don't like planning, but I'm all about being prepared. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think there's a million things they can be. And I'll probably, because of the success of this little silly, kid on my driveway video, I'm probably going to be doing more things like that. I'll probably be injecting more how you can apply this to life, because a lot of people have reached out to me saying similarly to what you said, like, you're talking about motorcycles, but you're kind of not, And
yeah. No, that's
moto philosophy, I actually coined it. I actually started, there's a section on the website called Moto Philosophy, that the whole idea was to kind of like, how do you tie, kind of these bigger issues back to an activity so that they're related and understandable.
Yeah. No, we can, I really feel like we can go on for a while. I was like, but
I actually don't have anything going on until I have plenty of time. So we're good to go.
Okay, great. Okay, but let's get into the video then. And I think I'm going to ask you all the same questions that a lot of people have asked you. But let me frame it like this. You know what I actually saw in the video, and hopefully this, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say on Sunday in my sermon about this, but what I actually saw is, I mean, you did this incredible thing like building a racetrack for the kid. And I mean, but you know what? I actually think the kids saw the racetrack before you did. Have you
Yeah.
have you thought about that? I don't know.
I
Maybe
have
really.
not thought about that, but you're 100% right, for sure.
I was watching this kid. I mean, obviously they're kind of doing this, and it seemed to me like this routine thing. Like, okay, and it's pandemic time, let's get out and let's like walk the dogs and stuff like that. And this 3-year-old never skipped your driveway because he saw something that other people didn't see. And I think that for me the interesting thing is actually you saw this and you had a choice in that stage. You could have gone out and said, listen, kid, get off my driveway. But you actually chose to play into the picture that he saw in his head. And I think you actually, I mean, that's where the magic came. So I was thinking, have you thought about that? Or what was the inspiration behind the racetrack and so forth?
Well, I honestly had not thought of it from that perspective, but I think that's a beautiful way to kind of see it. Like he saw it first, and maybe I could relate to him because I also like bikes. You know, the idea, honestly, like I've said this on a couple other interviews, and it started off. It's COVID. We're stuck in the house. I'm exhausted from a long day of work. All I want to do is watch some mindless television and kind of forget. And every night, I would get the alert, person in driveway. And you're like, oh, someone, like, oh, are they going to steal something from me? Are they trying to break in to the back gate, right? And you pop it up and you're like, oh, it's just that kid again, But it didn't take long until it turned into, hey, it's that kid again. And we'd pause the TV and we'd watch it on my phone. Like, oh, look, he's getting, And it turned into like, without any other kind of influence, he was bringing us like a moment of joy every evening, right? So he kind of started it. And my wife, she really deserves the credit for it. She's like, you should build him a racetrack. And I'm like, I'm not going to build him a racetrack. But she went to bed early because she had to get up early. So I'm sitting there watching TV thinking, racetrack, And so we had some chalk we don't have kids, but there was some chalk in the garage that I don't even know where it came from. I think it may have been there when we moved in. And I was like, oh, I have that chalk. I usually write, like we give stuff away, like the old barbecue, I'll just put it out on the street and write free on it with a piece of chalk. So that's what it was being used for. Yeah. And so I ran out in the middle of the night, still I'm sock footed, I ran out there and just kind of mocked up that silly little racetrack. But the funny thing was, after doing that, I felt like all good about myself. But I couldn't wait until the next evening. Like I was so excited.
I actually have a question. Like, how were you watching it? Like, were you watching it live on TV or on your phone? Like, or were you like waiting for the whole thing to like?
It only alerts me after it's happening. So I wasn't like spying on him. It wasn't that like kind of creepy, like, and the alert is set up on the camera that you set the sensitivity, like where it sees movement. And I had blocked out the sidewalk. So it doesn't ping when people walk up and down the sidewalk. It only pings when people get close to the gate right there, because there's a little gate. Yeah. So like we were just like, I haven't gotten alerted yet. Like every time, like, no, it's not that. You're like excited for the person in driveway alert. Yeah. But the next night, like normally he comes around 7:00 most nights. But that night, like, he's not coming. He's not coming. He came a little late. He came like at 7:30. I'm like, it was like the best part of the COVID summer. That point was that kid hitting that silly little racetrack.
Yeah. And once again, I think let's take away from, let's just ignore the fact that, I mean, this video is inspirational for 12.5 million people. I don't know how much. I think it's 12.7 million views at this stage. I mean, once again, what I saw is the excitement in one guy's face to see what the excitement in one kid's face is going to be when he hits this. I mean, and that's the magic of it. But I was to me, while watching the video for the first time, I was actually watching it while I was waiting for my kid to finish with his school. So I was like watching this video, and I was like, you kind of you see the kid stop, and you see him like considering what's happening here, and you see the parents, they're like, okay, go try it. And I mean, there's something in that moment, that hesitation of actually getting into, but it was beautiful. But just a silly question, do you actually know the family? Do you know the kid and the...
I do now. I didn't then. I had no idea who they were then. But I do, like, because I made the track, and it was cute, and we were watching it. And then I was driving up the street to go mountain biking, and I saw his little Strider bike laying in the front lawn. I was like, oh, well, he must live there, you know? So it was kind of like, oh, that's where he lives. And then he kept coming by every night. And then the way I met him is pretty charming. So I was mowing the lawn, and, you know, and I was like, I think someone's looking at me. And I look over, and he's sitting there on the sidewalk on his little bike with his mom, and he's just waving at me. So I turn off the lawnmower, and I'm like, hi. And he goes, thank you for the racetrack. I really like it, you know. And he was just so charming. He's like 4 years old, and he's like one of the sweetest kids. His mom's right there, and, you know.
Incredible.
And yeah, and so that's how I met him. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, the last question that I actually prepared, and once again, I think it's quite an obvious one when you consider the church angle. But the other thing from the video that was kind of, it seemed like an afterthought in some sense, but obviously it wasn't from you. But like, it wasn't just for the kid then. It wasn't just the kid trying the racetrack. It's like suddenly you see like parents pushing strollers on it, and other bigger kids on bigger bikes, and so the question is, could you pick up like a change in the community? It's not just for the kid, it's like a lot of people seeing this racetrack, or was it kind of, did it happen afterwards, or after a few days passed, or how did it happen? Because it seems like the whole community, well, not whole, but a big portion of the community kind of took notice of this racetrack. So I don't know, what's your thoughts?
Well, you know, like, I never would have predicted anybody else using it. It's the neighborhood we're in is actually called Veteran Heights. It's a post-World War II neighborhood. These were all homes built right after World War II. And so the demographic of the neighborhood is either, you know, a lot of World War II veterans, you know, in their 80s and 90s still living here, and a lot of young families, because they're smaller homes. You know, like homes nowadays in America are like 3,000 square feet. I don't even know what that would be in meters. 1,000 square meters?
No.
You know? Sorry. Hey. Stop it. Really.
No problem.
Come on, So like average homes in America are gigantic, you know? So you get kind of people who are more interested in community and walkable neighborhoods, which in America, that's not really a thing now. Now everyone has like these big giant castles. So the demographic of the neighborhood is kind of unique. And I did not at all expect many other kids to come trundling through the track. You know, I like that there's kids outside playing because the houses are too small for them to be in the basement playing video games all the time.
Yeah.
Never in a million years. And then, you know, like I kept getting like alerts were going off all the time. You know, I'd be out teaching out at the racetrack, and like the watch would buzz on like person in driveway, and I'd pull it up, and it's like mom with her stroller, or like a teenager doing it, or some guy mountain biking on the way to a trail would come do it. And people have tried it in scooters, you know, like their little Vespa scooters, and it's really hard. You can't do it in a scooter. It's too tight. And it's incredible that, and I, you know, like we all probably rode bikes as a kid, you know? And so like, wouldn't you have loved to have had a little racetrack to circle through when you were a kid on your bicycle? And everybody, it goes back to kind of like the first thing I was talking about. We have more in common than we do different.
No.
And tracks are fun, no matter how old you are. It's fun to like do the little wiggles and can I stay between the lines? It's fun, and it's innocent, and it's sincere. You know, there's no, you know, I don't know.
It's there's so much here. There's so much here. It's a great conversation. Thanks a lot, Dave. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to share, or anything that you'd like to say. Like I said, I think a lot of it actually came through, but I think some stuff like this really gives hope in a time where we really need to see other pictures. I think that was the reason I phoned you in the first place, because what I'm actually looking at in my personal life, my personal spiritual life, is it's like we really need to see something else, something that's kind of beneath the surface, or something except not just all the negativity. I mean, once again, it's like you hold both. You can't ignore the sorrow. You have to see that, but we really need to find eyes to see what's not that obvious, and maybe even more profound and useful for us, and to give us like a sense of being. And I think that's the reason why this video inspired me so much, because I just saw someone, actually two people, just being able to do it, and that transcends everything else that we've been experiencing as a global community at this stage. And to me, that's so important. We just need to go and spread this word. So I don't know if you have any comments on that. And
there's something I would actually, I think that would tie. So a little background on me and kind of the whole thing is, I grew up in a very, what I would call a strict religious, background. And it wasn't always the nicest. There was a lot of, not all churches are as positive as they could be, right? It was very doctrinal, and you don't dance and like all these rules. And it kind of, it's always kind of put me off. And I still struggle to this day spiritually because of that. Like there's a lot of bitterness. And then I joined the military, and, I did suffer pretty hard with PTSD, and there was a lot of anger that came from that, and a lot of anger. And my wife is an amazing woman. She kind of revealed, like, anger comes from fear, right? And a lot of men, I think, struggle with anger, and it comes from fear. And we're just like, culture, society doesn't allow men to be afraid. And so we respond with fear, with anger, right? Guy cuts you off, you fly into a rage. It's because you were scared for a second, but you can't admit that. So you go, but my wife, through all of her, she's really taught me and shown me the value of kindness. And that's really where this comes from. This whole thing came, I have tried my whole life since then to find kindness and be kind. Because think about a time in your life when someone was nice to you and they didn't need to be, and the impact that had on you. And I chose to try to be that person, try to be kind. And kind is, it doesn't require a whole lot. Building that silly little racetrack, the first time it didn't take me but 5 minutes. And now, like, I built the little rig and the whole thing. It takes maybe 20 minutes to build it. And it sits up there for a couple weeks until it rains. That's a minimal amount of time to show kindness that has now resonated. Like, what is the ripple of that brief little moment of kindness? And if all of us, and I can't say all of us, like, I don't want to get wax too philosophically, but like, the impact of kindness sometimes can't even be measured or seen. You do something kind for somebody, you smile, you hold the door open, like race issues are a big thing here, right? You're nice to somebody who someone else probably wasn't nice to. Think of the implications, like just being kind. And it sounds so simple, but it can be so intensely powerful. Just kindness, man,
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Oh, thanks so much, Dave. I can't begin to thank you enough. I really hope I didn't know what I was gonna do with this video, but at this stage, I really want to share it just with everyone, because I think there's so many truths that were spoken here, and that people can really take, and it's inspirational. It was while you were talking to me the whole time, but I mean, this last few sentences, it gave me goosebumps. It's so thank you so much for being, and that actually answers the first question I asked, namely, why did you say yes to this? Because I mean, it's not like my little church is gotta be a dent in your 1,700 subscribers. It's not, but why did you say yes? Because it's kindness. I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, and I would like to believe that this conversation now goes, and a few other kids hear this, and maybe share with their friends. And it's not about the view count or anything else. It's just people hearing this message, and that kind of just gives me the kick that I want.
Right. If one kid watches this, and that kid is nice to somebody else and makes an impact in their life, this hour you and I spent chatting, totally worth it.
Yeah.
Right? What's an hour?
Yeah.
And you never know. Like, maybe, and that resonates, right? And that kid is nice to the next kid, and that nice to the next person, helps the old lady cross the street, or Lord knows where it's going to go.
Kind of like
let's focus on kindness.
it's kind of like a positive pandemic, right?
Wouldn't that be great? Can't we have that for a change? Instead of you telling me why I need to hate my neighbor, tell me why we're the same and we're in this together. You're a Republican, but I'm a Democrat. I hate you. I'm told I have to hate you.
Oh, no. It's so incredible.